The partition of Bengal in 1947. Part of the partition of India divided the British Indian province of Bengal based on the red-slipe line between the Dominion of India and the Dominion of Pakistan. Hindu majority West Bengal became a state of India, and the Muslim majority East Bengal, now Bangladesh, became a province of Pakistan. On 20 June 1947, the Bengal Legislative Assembly made the decide the future of the Bengal presidency on being a united Bengal within India or Pakistan or divided into East and West Bengal. At the preliminary joint session, the Assembly decided by 120 to 19 that it should remain united if it joined the new Constituent Assembly of Pakistan. Later, a separate meeting of legislators from West Bengal decided 58 to 21 that the province should be partitioned and the West Bengal should join the existing Constituent Assembly of India. In another separate meeting of legislators from East Bengal, it was decided 106 to 35 that the province should not be partitioned and 107 to 34 that East Bengal should join Pakistan in the event of partition. On 6 July 1947, the Sylhet referendum decided to sever Sylhet from Assam and merge it into East Bengal. The partition with power transferred to Pakistan and India on 14 to 15 August 1947 was done according to what has come to be known as the 3 June Plan or the Mountbatten Plan, Indian independence on 15 August 1947. Indeed, over 115 years of British influence in the India subcontinent. East Pakistan became the independent country of Bangladesh after the 1971 Bangladesh Liberation War. With background, in 905, the first partition in Bengal was implemented was an administrative preference since covering two provinces, West and East Bengal, should be easier. The partition divides the province between West Bengal, whose majority was Hindu, and East Bengal, whose majority was Muslim, but left considerable minorities of Hindus in East Bengal and Muslims in West Bengal, while the Muslims were in favor of the partition, as they would have their own province. Hindus opposed it. The controversy led to increased violence and protests, and 1911 the province here again united. However, the disagreements between Hindus and Muslims in Bengal that had sparked the partition of Bengal in 1905 remained dead laws, including the second partition of Bengal in 1947, were implemented to fulfill the political needs to the parties involved. According to plan, on 20 June 1947, the members of the Bengal Legislative Assembly cast 3 separate votes on the proposal to partition Bengal. In the joint session of the House, composed of all members of the Assembly, the division of the joint session of the House stood at 126 votes against and 9 votes for joining the existing Constituent Assembly India. The members of the Muslim majority areas of Bengal in a separate session then passed a motion by 106 to 35 against partitioning Bengal and instead joining a new Constituent Assembly Pakistan as a whole. A separate meeting of the members of the non-Muslim majority areas of Bengal then decided for 58 to 21 to partition the province. Under the Mountbatten plan, a single majority vote in favor of partition by either of the nationally divided halves of the assembly would have decided the division of the province, and hence the proceedings on 20 June resulted in the decision of partition Bengal. That set the stage for the creation of West Bengal as a province of India and East Bengal as a province of the Dominion of Pakistan. As in accordance with the Mountbatten plan, a referendum held on 6 July had the electorate of Sylhet vote on join East Bengal. Further, the Boundary Commission, headed by Sir Churchill Redcliffe, decided on the territorial demarcation between the two newly created provinces. Power was transferred to Pakistan and India on 14 and 15 August respectively under the Indian Independence Act 1947. The Kishak Praza Party said Habib al-Rahman said the partitioning India was absurd and chimerical, criticizing the partition of the province of Bengal and India as a whole. Sayyid Habib ul-Rahman said that the Indian, both Hindus and Muslims, live in a common motherland, use the offshoots of a common language and literature, and are proud of the noble heritage of a common Hindu and Muslim culture, developed through centuries of residence in a common land. Prime Minister of Bangla. After it became apparent that the division of India on the basis of the two-nation theory would almost certainly result in the partition of Bengal along religious lines, the Bengal Provincial Muslim League leader Hussain Shahid Suhrawardi came up with a new plan to create an independent Bengal state, which would join neither Pakistan for India and remain unpartitioned. Suhrawardi realized that if Bengal was partitioned, it would be economically disastrous for East Bengal. As well, coal mills, all but 2 jute mills and other industrial plants would certainly go to the western part since they were in overwhelmingly Hindu areas. Most importantly, Kolkata, the largest city in India and industrial and commercial hub and the largest port, would also go to the western part. Suhrawardi floated his idea on 24 April 1947 at a press conference in Delhi. However, the plan directly ran counter to that of the Muslim League's plan, which demanded the creation of a separate Muslim homeland on the basis of the two-nation theory. The Bengal Provincial Muslim League leadership opinion was divided. The leader Abul Hussein supported it, but Nurul Amin and Muhammad Akram Khan opposed it. However, Muhammad Ali Jinnah realized that validity of Suhrawardi's argument and gave his tacit support to the plan. After Jinnah's approval, Suhrawardi started gathering support for his plan. For the Congress, only a handful of leaders agreed to the plan, such as influential Bengal provincial Congress leader Sharat Chandra Basu, the elder brother of Netaji, and Kiran Shankar Roy. However, most other leaders and Congress leaders, including uh, Jawaharlal Nehru and Vallabhbhai Patel rejected the plan. The nationality is Hindu under the leadership of Shyama Prasad Mukherjee vehemently opposed it and considered it nothing but a ploy by Suhrawardi to stop the partition of the state, so that its industrial waste, including the city of Kolkata, would remain under League control. It also claimed that even if the plan was for a severing Bengal state, it would be a virtual Pakistan, and the Hindu minority would always be at the mercy of the Muslim majority. Although the chance of the proposal seeing light without the Congress Central Committee's approval was slim, Bose and Suhrawardi continued talk to reach an agreement on the political structure of the proposed state, like Suhrawardi. Bose also felt that partitions would severely hamper Bengal's economy, and almost half of the Hindus would be left stranded in East Pakistan. The agreement was published on 24 May 1947 but was largely political. The proposal had little support at grassroots level, particularly among Hindus. The Muslim League's continues propaganda for the two-nation theory during the past 6 years, as well as the marginalization of Hindus in the Suhrawardi ministry and the BKOS 1946 riots, which many Hindus believe to have been sponsored by the state, left little room for trust by the Bengal Hindus. Soon, Bose and Suhrawardi were divided on the nature of electorate, separate or joint. Suhrawardi, instead, upon maintaining the separate electors for Muslim and non-Muslims, Bose opposed the idea of withdrawal, the lack of any other significant support by the Congress caused by the United Bengal plan to be discarded. Still, a relatively unknown episode marked the last attempt among Bengal Muslim and Hindu leadership to avoid partition and to live together. Displacement 1946 to 1951. Following the partition of Bengal between the Hindu majority West Bengal and the Muslim majority East Bengal, there was an influx of refugees from both sides. Estimation suggests that before partition, West Bengal had a population of 21.2 million, of whom 5.3 million, or roughly 25%, were Muslim minorities, and West and East Bengal had 39.1 million people, of whom 11.4 million, or roughly 30%, are were predominantly Hindu minorities. Nearly 5 million Hindus have left Pakistan's East Bengal for India's West Bengal region, and about 2 million Muslims have left India's West Bengal for Pakistan's East Bengal region immediately after partition because of violence and rioting resulting from mobs supporting West Bengal and East Bengal. 1960. An estimated 3 million Hindus refugees had entered West Bengal by 1960 and close to 700k Muslims left for East Pakistan. The refugee influx in Bengal was also accompanied by the fact the government was less prepared to in housing and sanitation problems for the millions, most of the whom were owners of large property back in East Bengal. During East Pakistan riot of 1964, it is estimated, according to Indian authorities, 135,000 Hindu refugees arrived in West Bengal from East Pakistan, and the Muslims started to migrate to Pakistan from West Bengal. According to Pakistan figures, 43,000 Muslim refugees have arrived from West Bengal since 1 January. In 1971, during the Bangladesh Liberation War against Pakistan, a large group of refugees, numbering an estimated 7,002,035 and 900 from Bangladesh to India's West Bengal. Nearly 80% of the were Bengali Hindus, and after independence of Bangladesh, nearly 15, 21, 99, 12 people belonging to Bengali Hindu refugees decided to stay back in West Bengal. The Bangladesh Hindus were mainly settled in India, North 24 Parganas and South 24 Parganas district of West Bengal after 1971. Before the official red slave line was drawn in 1947, these were the religious demographic in Bengal. Muslim majority districts Dinajpur, Rangpur, Malda, Murshidabad, Rajshahi, Bogra, Bhabna, Mymensingh, Jashore, Nadia, Faridpur, Dhaka, Tipara, Bakirganj, Noakhali and Chittagong. Hindu majority district Kolkata, Howrah, Hooghly, Birbham, Bardhan, Bankura, Midnapura, Jalpaiguri, Darjeeling, 24 Pargan and Khulna. Buddhist majority district Chittagong Hill Tract. Final division Pakistan. East Dinajpur, Rangpur, Rajshahi, Bogura, Bhabna, Mymensingh, Sylhet, Khulna, Bakirganj, Plain, Tipara, Tripura, Noakhali, Chittagong, Jashore, East India, Chittagong Hill Facts. India, West Dinajpur, Jalpaiguri, Darjeeling, Malda, Murshidabad, West India, Kolkata 24 Pargana, Bardhaman, Birbhum, Midnapur, Howrah, Hooghly, and Karimganj district in Assam. The second partition of Bengal left behind a legacy of violence that has continued ever since. As Vasabi Fraser, but there is the reality of the country now flow of economic migrants, refugees, infiltrators, illegal immigrants who cross, cover the border and pan out across the subcontinent, looking for work and a new home, setting in metropolitan centers as far off as Delhi and Mumbai, keeping the question of the partition alive today. A massive population transfer began immediately after partition. Millions of Hindus migrated to India from East Bengal, most of them settled in West Bengal. A significant number even went to Tripura, and other states. However, the refugee crisis was markedly different from Punjab at India's western border. Punjab had witnessed widespread communal riots immediately before partition. As a result, the population transfer in Punjab happened almost immediately after partition. Was terrified people left their homes from both sides. Within a year, the population exchange had been largely complete between East and West Punjab, but in Bengal, violence was limited to Kolkata and Noakhali. Hence, in Bengal, the migration occurred much more gradually and continued over the 3 decades after partition. Although riots were limited in pre-independence Bengal, the environment was communally charged. Both Hindus in East Bengal and Muslims in West Bengal felt unsafe and had to take a crucial decision on either to live for an uncertain future in another country or to stay in subjugation under the other community. Among Hindus in East Bengal, those who were better placed economically, particularly higher caste Hindus left first government employees, were given a chance to sweep their posts between India and Pakistan. The educated urban upper and middle classes, the rural gentry, traders, businessmen and artisans left for India soon after partition. They often had relatives and other connections in West Bengal and settled with less difficulty. Muslims followed a similar pattern. The urban and educated upper and middle classes left for East Bengal first. However, poorer Hindus in East Bengal, most of whom belonged to lower castes like the Namashudras, found it much more difficult to migrate. Their only property was immovable land holdings. Many sharecropped had no skill other than farming. As a result, most of them decided to stay in East Bengal. However, the political climate in Pakistan deteriorated soon after partition to communal violence started to rise in 1951. Severe riots occurred in Barishal and other places in East Pakistan. causing a further exodus of Hindus. The situation was vividly described by Jagannath Mandal's resignation letter of Pakistani Prime Minister Liaquat Ali Khan. Mandal was a Namashudra leader, and despite being a lower caste Hindu, he supported the Muslim League as a protest to the subjugajuk of power caste Hindu of the higher caste coalitionist. He failed to India the resignate from this cabinet minister's post for the next two decades. Hindus left East Bengal whenever communal tensions flared up or relationship between India and Pakistan deteriorated as in 1964. The situation of the Hindu minority in the East Bengal reached its worst in the months preceding and during the Bangladesh Liberation War of 1971, when the Pakistani army systematically targeted ethnic Bengalis regardless of religious background as part of Operation Searchlight. In independence, Bangladesh state-sponsored discrimination of Hindus largely stopped. However, like India, the two communities' relationships remained tense and occasional communal violence occurred, such as in the aftermath of Babri Mosque demolition. Illegal immigration of India was continued but is now mostly economic and is not limited to Hindus alone. The Muslim is most independent West Bengal faced some discrimination. It was unlike the state-sponsored discrimination faced by the Hindus in East Bengal. Most Hindus fled from East Bengal, but Muslims largely stayed on in West Bengal. Over the years, however, the community became ghettoized and was socially and economically segregated from the majority community. West Bengali Muslims are highly marginalized, as can be seen from social indicators like literacy and per capita income. Apart from West Bengal, thousands of Bihari Muslims also settled in East Bengal. They had suffered terribly in severe roots before partition. However, they supported West Pakistan during the Liberation War and were subsequently denied citizenship in independent Bangladesh. Most of the Bihari refugees have remained stateless. Statistics. The 1951 census in India recorded 2.523 million refugees from East Bengal, 2.061 million of whom settled in West Bengal. The rest went to Assam, Tripura and other states. By 1973, the number reached over 6 million. The following table shows the major waves of refugee influx and the incidents that caused it. Year for number 1, number in lakh. Year region 1947, region partition number in lakh 3.44. 1948 Hyderabad annexation by India, number in lakh 7.86. 1956 region Pakistan becomes Islamic Republic, number in lakh 3.20. 1964 Reuss over Hazratbal incident, number in lakh 6.93. 1971 Bangladesh Liberation War, number in lakh 15. The 1951 census in Pakistan recorded 1671,000 refugees in East Bengal, the majority of which came from West Bengal. The rest were from Bihar. By 1961, the numbers reached 850,000. Crowd estimates suggest that about 1.5 million Muslims migrated from West Bengal and Bihar to East Bengal in 2 decades after partition. Government response. In Punjab, the Indian government anticipated a population transfer and was ready to take proactive measures. Land plots that were evacuated by Muslims were allotted to incoming Hindu and Sikh refugees. The government allocated substantial research for the rehabilitation of refugees in Punjab. In contrast, there was no such planning in the eastern part of the country. Neither the central nor the West Bengal state governments anticipated any large-scale population exchange, and no coordinated policy was in place to rehabilitate the newly independent country. Had few resources, and the central government was exhausted in resetting 7 million refugees in Punjab. Instead of providing rehabilitation, the Indian government tried to stop an event and no coordinated policy was in place to rehabilitate the newly independent country. Had few resources, and the central government was exhausted in resetting 7 million refugees in Punjab. Instead of providing rehabilitation, the Indian government tried to stop an event to reverse the refugee influx from East Bengal. India and Pakistan signed the Liaquat-Nehru Pact in 1950 to stop any further population exchange between West and East Bengal. Both countries agreed to take the refugees back and to return them the property which they evacuated in the respective countries. However, in practice, both countries failed to uphold it. Even after it became clear that refugees were determined not to be sent back, the governments to both countries failed to provide any significant assistance. The government policy of East Bengal refused them to empty areas mostly outside of West Bengal. One of the most controversial scheme was the government's decision to settle the refugees by force in Tandarkharha, a barren plot of land in central India. Social impact. Without the government's assistance, the refugee social impact. Without the governments of assistance, the refugees often settled themselves. Some found jobs in factories, when it took immense small business and hawking. Numerous refugee colonies sprang up in Nadia, 24 Paragaons, and Kolkata's sub- suburbs. Tripura's tribal insurgency. The princely state of Tripura had a predominantly tribal population, but educated Bengals were welcomed by the king and were prominent in the state's administration in pre-independence India. However, after partition, thousands of Bengali Hindus migrated to Tripura, which changed the state's demography completely. Tripura's tribes became a minority in their own homeland and lost their holding as a result. A tribal insurgency began, causing violent riots among tribes and Bengals in 1980. A low-scale insurgency has continued ever since. Many Bengalis migrated from Bengal side during partition and the liberation war, but half of the Bengali community of Tripura has lived in Tripura for hundreds of years. According to the 1901 census report, which clearly stated that Bengali and Tripura had numbers that were almost equal. Economic impact. West Bengal. Red Sleefish land split Bengal, which had always historically been always a single economic, cultural and ethnic. Bengali Hindu to Bengali Muslim zone into two halves. Both halves were intricately connected. The partly first produced food and raw materials which the West consumed, and the industrial West produced manufactured goods which were consumed by the West. According to the POV, this was either considered an exploitative or a mutually beneficial trade and exchange. This was naturally severely disrupted by partition. Road and water communication routes were severed between them. After partition, West Bengal suffered from a substantial food storage as the fertile rice producing districts went to East Bengal. The storage continued into the 1950 as and the 1960. By 1959, West Bengal faced an annual food storage of 90 and 15,000 tons. Hunger marches became a common sight in Kolkata. Jute was the largest industry in Bengal at partition. The Red Sleepy line left every single jute mill in West Bengal but 4/5 of the jute producing land in East Bengal. The best quality fibre yielding breeds of jute were cultivated mostly in East Bengal. India and Pakistan initially agreed to a trade agreement to import raw jute from East Bengal for West Bengal's mill. However, Pakistan had plans to set up its own mills and put restrictions on raw jute export to India. West Bengal's mills faced acute storage and the industry faced a crisis. On the other hand, jute farmers in East Bengal were now without a market to sell their produce. Exporting jute to West Bengal suddenly became an anti-national act for Pakistan. Smuggling of raw jute shot up across the border, but West Bengal repeatedly increased jute production and in the mid to late 1950s became largely self-sufficient in jute. West Bengal's mills became less dependent on East Bengal for raw materials. Pakistan also set up new to process its local produce instead of exporting to India. The following table shows jute production details in both countries. 1961. West Bengal's paper and leather industry faced similar problems. The paper mills used East Bengal's bamboo, and the tanneries consumed leather, which were also mainly produced in East Bengal. Like jute, the lack of raw material pushed both industries into decline. Despite central and state governments' best efforts, the pressure of millions of refugees, food storage, and industrial decline after independence put West Bengal in a severe crisis. Dr. B.C. Roy's government tried to cope up with the situation by initiating several projects. The government built irrigation networks like DBC and Mayarakshi project, the Durgapur Industrial Zone and the Salt Lake City. But they failed to arrest West Bengal's decline. Poverty rose and West Bengal lost its top place and largest, well behind other Indian states in industrial development. Massive political unrest, strike, and violence tripled the state for the 3 decades after partition. Northeast India. Rail and road link connecting Northeast India to the rest of the country past the East Bengal territory. The lands connecting Siliguri in North Bengal to Kolkata and Assam to Chittagong were severed. The whole Assam railway was cut off from the rest of the Indian system. Those lines carried almost all freight traffic from those regions. The most important commodities were tea and timber. The tea industry in Assam depended on the Chittagong port to export its produce and import raw materials for the industry such as coal, which was used as the fuel to dry the tea leaves. The industry was severely hit as Chittagong went to Pakistan. Initially, India and Pakistan reached an agreement to allow cross-border transit traffic, but India now had to pay a tariff. By 1950, India had reconnected Assam to the rest of the country's rail network by building a 29 kilometer gauge rail link through the Siliguri corridor. But now the tea chased from Assam's gardens would have to be carried over a much longer distance to reach the port of Kolkata. Exporting tea via the nearby Chittagong port was still an option. But after the Indo-Pakistani War of 1965, Transit traffic was switched off by Pakistan. East Pakistan became independent Bangladesh in 1971, but cross-border railway traffic did not resume until 2003. By the 1990s, India uh, upgraded the Assam rail link to FT6 in broad gauge up to Dibrugarh. There will be easing the traffic problems in Brahmaputra Valley region. But the southern section of the area, which comprises Tripura, Mizoram, Manipur, and Barak Valley of Assam, still faces serious connectivity problems. Talks between both countries are underway to allow transit traffic between the area and mainland India, though Bangladesh. East Bengal. The partition, East Bengal had no large industry. There were few mineral resources in this region. Its economy was completely agrarian. The main produce was food grains and other crops, jute, bamboo, leather, and fish. The raw materials were consumed by factories in and around Kolkata. Kolkata was the center of Bengal's economics and social development for both Hindus and Muslims. Large industries, military bases, and government office, and most of the institutions of higher education were in Kolkata. Without Kolkata, East Bengal was decapitated. It lost its traditional market for agricultural products. It also lost Kolkata, the most important port of the country. East Bengal had to begin from nothing. Dhaka was only a district headquarters. Government offices had to be placed inside makeshift buildings. Dhaka also faced a severe human resource crisis. The majority of high-ranking officers in British Indian administration were Hindu and migrated to West Bengal. Often the post had to be filled up by West Pakistani officers. Desperately poor, East Bengal soon became politically dominated by West Pakistan. Economic disparities and subjugation of Bengalis by the Punjabi elite eventually led to struggle for separation. In popular culture, Cinnamon, the Uprooted. In a 1950 Bengali film directed by Nimai Ghosh first dealt with the theme of partition of Bengal. This was followed by Ritik Kathak's trilogy Meghe Dhaka Tara, Cloud Covered Star 1960, Komal Gondhar 1961, and Subarnarekha 1962, all dealing with the aftermath of the partition. The film Rajkahini directed by Srijit Mukherjee, is also based on the theme of partition of Bengal, 1947. History of Bangladesh. Civil Sectional History of Bangladesh, previously known as East Bengal, dates back over 4 millennia to the Chalcolithic. The country's early documented history featured succession of Hindu and Buddhist kingdoms and empires, vying for regional dominance. Islam arrived during the 6th to 7th century AD and became dominant gradually since the early 13th century with the conquest led by Bakhtiar Khalji, as well as actives of Sunni missionaries such as Shah Jalal in the region. Later Muslim rulers initiated the preaching of Islam by building mosques. For the 14th century onward, it was ruled by the Bengal Sultanate, founded by King Samsuddin Ilyas Shah, beginning a period of the country's economic prosperity and military dominance over the regional empires, which was referred by the Europeans as the richest country to chain with. Afterward, the region came under the Mughal Empire as its wealthiest province. Bengal Suba generated almost half of the empire's GDP and 12th of the world's GDP. Larger than the entirety of Western Europe, ushering in the period of proto-industrialization. The population of the capital city, Dhaka, exceeded 1 million people. Following the decline of the Mughal Empire in the year 17th, Bengal became a semi-independent state under the Nawabs of Bengal, ultimately led by Siraj-ud-Dowlah. It was later conquered by the British East India Company. At the Battle of Plassey in 1757, Bengali directly contributed to the Industrial Revolution in Britain but led to its deindustrialization. The Bengal Presidency was later established. The borders of modern Bangladesh were established with the separation of Bengal and India in August 1947. When the region became East Pakistan was a part of the newly formed state of Pakistan following the end of British rule in the region. Proclamation of Bangladeshi independence in March 1971 led to the 9-month-long Bangladesh Liberation War that culminated with East Pakistan emerging as the People's Republic of Bangladesh. After independence, the new state endured famine, natural disasters, and widespread poverty, as well as political turmoil and military coups. Etymology of Bengal. The exact origin of the word Bangla or Bengal is unknown according to Mahabharata, Purana, Haribhamsa, Bhanga was one of the adopted sons of King Will who founded the Bhagna kingdom. Banga kingdom. The earliest reference to Bangla has been traced in the necessary plates of the South Indian ruler Rashtrakuta Gobindo I, who invaded northern India in the 9th century, which speak of Dharmapala was the king of Bengala. The records of Rajendra Chola of the Chola dynasty who invaded Bengal in the 11th century appointed Gobindo Chandra as the ruler of Bengal. Shams Uddi Ilyas Shah took the title Shah-e-Bangala and united the whole region under one government for the first time. The Bangla kingdom was located in the western part of the Indian subcontinent, comprising part of present-day modern Bangladesh and ideas West Bengal, Bangas of Pandra with two dominant chiefs in Bangladesh and incident time. The Oxford History of India categorically claims that there is no definitive information about Bengal before the 3rd century BCE. It is believed that there were movements of Indo-Aryans, Dravidians and Mongoloids, including a people called Banga into Bengal. The Bengal Delta was made up to thick jungles and wetlands for several millennia. A major part of this geography lasted till historical times. The loss of the jungle was due to human activity. Bengal had an early human presence, but there is no consensus for the time frame of the first human activity in Bengal, nor are there plenty of remains. One view contends that humans entered Bengal from China 16,000 years ago. Another view claims that the distinct regional culture among 100,000 years ago. There is weak evidence for a prehistoric human presence in the region. There is scant evidence of a human presence during the Neolithic and Chalcolithic eras. This could be because of the shifts in the river's courses. The Bengali climate and geography is not suitable for tangible archaeological remains due to lack to stones. The early humans in Bengal probably used materials such as wood and bamboo that could not survive in the environment. South Asian archaeologists have tended to focus on other parts of the subcontinent. Archaeologists interested in Bengal have focused on more recent story. Archaeological discoveries are almost entirely from the hills around the Bengal Delta. West Bengal and Bangladesh's western terrains offer the best source of information about the early peoples of Bengal. Industries of fossil wood manufacturing, blades, scrapers and axes have been discovered in Lalmai, Sitakund, and Chaklapunji. These have been connected with similar findings in Burma and West Bengal. West Bengal large stones thought to the prehistoric were constructed in northwestern Bangladesh and are similar to those in India's nearby hills. Farming was practiced before the first millennium BCE. West Bengal holds the earliest evidence of settled agrarian societies. Agricultural success have grown in the 5th century BCE for a stationary culture, and the emergence of towns cross sea trade and the earliest politics. Archaeologists have uncovered a port at Wari Batasho, which standed with ancient Rome and Southeast Asia. The archaeologists have discovered coinage pottery, iron artifacts, briquette road, and a font in Wari Bateshwar. The findings suggest that the area was an important administrative hub, which had industries such as iron smelting and valuable stone beads. The site shows widespread use of clay. The clay and bricks were used to build walls. The most famous terracotta plaques made by clay are from Chandraketurga and depicts details and the early coinage discovered in War, Bateshwar and West Bengal depict boards. Many of archaeological excavations in Bangladesh revealed evidence of the northern block published where culture of the Indian subcontinent, which was an Iron Age culture developed beginning around 700 BC and peaked from c. 500 to 300 BC, coinciding with the emergence of 6 great states or Mahajanapadas in northern India and the subsequent rise of the Mauryan Empire. The eastern part of ancient India, covering much of current days Bangladesh, was part of such Mahajanapadas, the ancient kingdom of Anga, which flourished in the 6th century BC. Well-developed towns had emerged by 300 BCE, such as Tamralipi, Mahastan and Moinamati. Instead of the seaside, main towns sprang up by the riversides. Mahastan contains the earliest speech of writing in Bangladesh. A stone inscription it indicates that the site was an important town in the Maurya Empire. Mahastan is believed to have then been a provincial center. The inscription in Prakriti apparently contains a command to stock up A prominent view in scholarship is that the Mauryans and Gupta Empire exercised authority over most parts of the Bengal Delta. The complete evidence which exists suggests that Bengal's west rather than eastern regions were parts of larger empires. The ancient zones in Bengal were the Bhagirathi, Hooghly, Bashin, Harikela, Samatata, Benga, and Barandra. Banga is believed to be central Bengal. Harikela and Samitata were apparently Bengal's eastern zones, and Barendra was northern Bengal. The names of sites indicated that Tibetu Burman, West Asiatic, and Dravidian languages were spoken by the majority of people. Indo-European languages became prominent from 14 BCE. Overseas colonization. The Banga kingdom was a powerful seafaring nation of ancient Bengal. They had overseas trade relations with Java, Sumatra, and Siam, modern-day Thailand. According to Mahavamsa, the Banga prince Vijaya Singha conquered Lanka, modern-day Sri Lanka, in 544 BC and gave them name Sinhala to the country. Bengal people migrated to the maritime Southeast Asia and Siam in modern Thailand, establishing their own settlement there. Though North and West Bengal were part of the empire, Southern Bengal thrived and became powerful with her overseas trades in 326 BCE. With the invasion of Alexander the Great, the region again came to prominence. The Greek and Latin historians suggested that Alexander the Great withdrew from India. In India, anticipation the violent counter-attack to the mighty Gangaridai Empire that was located in the Bengal region. Alexander, after the meeting with his officer, Coenus, was convinced that it was better to return. Diodorus Siculus mentioned Gangaridai to be the most powerful empire in India, whose king possessed an army of 2,000 horses, or 2 lakh infantry, 2,000 chariots and 4,000 elephants, trained and equipped for war. The elite force of Gangaridai Empire and Nanda Empire were preparing a massive counter-attack against the forces of Alexander on the banks of Ganges. Gangaridai, according to the Greek accounts, kept on flourishing at the least up to the last 30 AD.